It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Good afternoon on a very cold Saturday afternoon. First and foremost, guys, don't forget tomorrow is Valentine's Day. If you're driving around out there and you have not thought about that, you've not got the gift yet, I would suggest that it'd be in your best interest that you don't forget to go get the gift for your love of your life. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so remember that if you will. I want to give a couple of shout-outs to begin the show. First of all, Carrie Murphy is having the North Little Rock Gun Show at the Windsong Event Center. That's at 7318 Windsong Drive in North Little Rock. It is today till 5 o'clock and then tomorrow from 9 to 4. The location was changed kind of at the last minute due to some arrangements that needed to be worked out to accommodate a bigger gun show. And so you want to run over there and check out the gun show that Carrie Murphy puts on. It's at the old Windsong Church. You may know it from coming down I-40 toward Little Rock. Get off there at 4:30. Sits right there in the corner of I-430 and I-40. And you can get there by going to 7318 Windsong Drive in North Little Rock. Again, that's today 9 to 5 and tomorrow 9 to 4 after church. Tomorrow 9 to 4. Then also, I want to give a shout out to the Wood Grill in Benton. They opened back up this week, and already I hear the business is great down there. Elgin Hamner, Hamner, not Hammer, is the owner down there. He and his wife and family at the Wood Grill in Benton. They've got open back up. They're open Thursday through Sunday, 10:45 to 8:30. The best way to get there if you're coming out of Little Rock is go down, get off at the Highway 5 exit, loop over the interstate, come back up, and as soon as you go by Colton's and IHOP, there's a road that turns up to the right. You'll see it sitting up there on top of the hill. That's the best way to get there if you're coming out of Little Rock. For everybody else that is in the Benton area, you know it's behind Burger King and also behind Popeye's Chicken. I'd encourage you to go by and support those guys. They've been off for a long time because of COVID, and they really need for you to come by and support them. And you'll get a great food buffet, and it's clean. It's compliant with the Department of Health directives, and so it's a safe place to go eat. And I'd really encourage you to go by there. Not to mention, you get some really good food at some really good prices. That's at Wood Grill there in Benton. All right, let's get right into the show today because we got a lot to cover. I've got some guests on that we're going to talk about a bill that cleared the Senate, Senate Bill 289, which is the Medical Ethics and Diversity, known to or referred to as the Med Act. That's Senate Bill 289. If you want to go up there to www.arcleg.ar.gov, you can type in Senate Bill SB 289 and pull it up and read it in entirety while we discuss it today. I've got two special guests on. Actually, I've got a calling guest unexpectedly here that's going to chime in on this one as well. But we've got State Representative Brandt Smith, who's carrying the bill on the House end, and then we got Stephanie Nichols, who is the Arkansas counsel for the firm that is representing the bill, and we're glad to have both of them on. And then also just found out we've got Dr. Greg Bledsoe that has called on. So if we can get all three of y'all on the line. Brent, do I have you on the line as well?
I'm here.
Very good. And Stephanie, I got you on, right? She's calling in from out of town. She may have a bad signal. So, Stephanie, are you there? All right. How about Dr. Bledsoe? You on the phone?
I'm here.
Very good. I'll tell you what, Dr. Bledsoe, thanks for calling in today. It's kind of an unexpected surprise, so I thank you for that. And let me do this first and foremost, because I think you've got a pressing engagement you've got to get to. Last time this bill ran, as I understand it, you were kind of on the other side of supporting it, but this time I understand that you are supporting it, or at least you have an understanding of what the bill does this time that it didn't do last time. Let me ask you, what is it that's different about this bill from last time that you can come out in support of it now?
Well, that's a great question, and I appreciate you having me on the show. There's a lot of misinformation about this bill. A lot of people are saying that this bill is discriminatory, that it singles people out because of identifiers like race or religion or sexual orientation or something like that. But that's not what this bill does. So 4 years ago when this bill came up, I testified against it in committee, mainly because I thought that it was addressing a problem that didn't exist. And so I described it as a solution looking for a problem, so to speak. And in addition to that, I also heard from people who felt like it was discriminatory. And Because I didn't feel like it was addressing a real problem, I felt like we should err on the side of not passing it. And so that's why I testified against it. 4 years later now, I have a different opinion on this. Number one, I think that there's a growing real risk to people pressure being put on healthcare professionals to participate in procedures that they don't feel right about. And number two, I do not feel in any way that this is discriminatory. This is a bill that's focused on healthcare providers opting out of specific services, not healthcare providers being able to say no to taking care of groups of people. If it's a service, you have to provide it for everyone, but no healthcare professional should be forced by coercion from the state to do something against their conscience, specifically a procedure that they don't feel right about.
There's as I understand it, there's sorry about that. Got some feedback going on. As I understand it, from a document of the Americans United for Life, they actually put out a publication that identifies that 45 states protect the freedom of conscience of only certain healthcare professionals and/or institutions from participating in specific procedures, usually abortion only. 2 states, which would be Illinois and Mississippi, protect the freedom of conscience of all healthcare providers, whether individuals, institutions, or payers, being public or private, who conscientiously object to participating in the healthcare procedures. Also, I've got some documentation that shows that there's a growing concern among healthcare professionals, which may contribute to a shortage in the future if they do not have certain protections. Do you feel that that's a legitimate concern, or is that just one side of the argument trying to push out a narrative that would give a sense of support for this without there really being a need?
No, I totally agree with that, and I do think that there are healthcare providers who are looking at the situation that's in our country, where more and more pressure is being put on them to do certain things, and they're concerned. I've had talks with healthcare providers who've actually said, well, gosh, if things get too bad and I can't do things if I'm being coerced into doing things that I feel like are morally wrong, I'm going to look for another country to practice in. And there's a lot of countries that would love to have American physicians. And so I think that, this is something, we're not at that level yet where people are, revoking their American citizenship and traveling to other places to practice medicine or anything like that. But I can tell you that there are people with very strong beliefs and morals who would say, I would rather be true to myself and true to my morals and principles than to be coerced into something that I feel strongly against. And they would step away from the practice of medicine or healthcare before they would compromise their principles. And I think that's something that is underestimated by those who are pushing certain agendas across our country. We already desperately need more doctors and more nurses. We don't need to be taking a subset of those people and pushing them out of the practice of medicine by coercing them into doing things that they feel wrong about. And again, I just want to say very clearly to your listeners, this is not about saying, okay, if you're a healthcare provider, you can pick and choose what groups of people that you're going to be taking care of. That has nothing to do with this. So I know there are people who are saying that potentially people who don't like certain races or certain religions or certain political views or certain sexual orientations, that they could pick and choose which groups they could take care of. That's absolutely incorrect. It has nothing to do with this bill. This is about saying to someone, you aren't offering this procedure right now, and we're going to make you offer it to all groups because, that's what the state wants. And that to me is morally objectionable, and that's why I'm in favor of this bill.
And you're speaking in your capacity as an individual physician, correct?
That's correct. And I always have to clarify when I say things. As I am the Surgeon General, and in this capacity right now, I'm not speaking as the Surgeon General. I'm speaking as a physician who is practicing clinical medicine currently. And I just want listeners to know, I practice emergency medicine, and in the emergency department, we see everyone. We don't ask about insurance. We don't ask about even whether it's an emergency. You can come every day to any emergency department for a cough or a runny nose or a backache or a stubbed toe if you want to, and some people do. And that's totally, totally fine for those of us, myself and other practicing emergency physicians, we're proud to do that. But as a clinical physician who practices in the state of Arkansas, I'm hearing from more physicians who are concerned about this issue, and I think they deserve to have protections for their conscience.
Well, and on page 6 of the bill, line 4 through 7, it specifically mentions that the right of conscience described in subsection A of this section does not include the right to deny emergency medical care as required under as existing January 1st, 2021, or any other federal law governing emergency medical treatment. And I will tell you, it does get under my skin that people are out there saying that, well, this will give them the ability for a Christian to deny services to a Muslim in an emergency situation, or somebody who has a philosophical difference with somebody that may be of the gay or lesbian community would deny them, emergency treatment in the ER or at the ambulance or first responder that's a volunteer fireman out there in the field. That's got to control my attitude here a little bit, because what really irritates me is when people take something that's written plainly in the bill and then turn around and lie about it in order to get somebody to think that this bill does what it doesn't do.
Well, that's a really good point. And I want to say one more thing just for clarity's sake. The other thing that this bill is not saying is, because people have said, well, it's hard to find practitioners in certain areas, and there are important but elective procedures. And so, how would that affect people who need elective procedures? But, how do we protect those folks? This is not, here's the situation. If you're a surgeon and you do surgery on people's gallbladders, and someone comes to you with an elective gallbladder case, you can't say, oh, well, that person is of this race, and so I'm going to not do it for that person, even though I do them for everyone else, or that person's of this religion or that sexual orientation. That has nothing to do with this. If you offer that service, if you take out people's gallbladders or do gallbladder surgery, you are required under the discrimination laws that we have in our state and country to do that for everyone. And everyone comes to an emergency department for emergency procedures. Any surgeon who does that gallbladder surgery could do that for anyone, and should and is required to do that for everyone in every group, no matter what. What this is saying is that, and for instance, so if you're a surgeon and you do, for instance, sex change surgeries, and someone comes to you and says, I want to do a sex change surgery or whatever, you can't say to them, well, I don't do sex change surgeries on this religion or this race of people. You're required to do that. But someone can't come to you and say as a surgeon, hey, I need a sex change surgery, and the surgeon say, well, I don't do those, and then the person turn around and say that's discriminating. You can't make someone do a procedure if they don't do that procedure or they've opted out of that procedure. But if they do that procedure, you need every physician, every surgeon is going to do that procedure for every group of people. And that's what this law is protecting, the opting out of certain procedures, but not the opting out of taking care of certain groups of people. It's a very important distinction.
Okay, and let me clarify on that, then I'm going to let you go, and I've got to give some time to Representative Smith and also to Stephanie Nichols with the Alliance Defending Freedom organization. So if I'm a surgeon, if I'm a doctor and I do gallbladder surgeries, and if somebody comes in and presents that is of a different lifestyle or whatever that I may have a conscientious objection to, but I'm doing that surgery for everybody, and that person walks in and says, hey, I am of this certain lifestyle, I want you to know that before you do this surgery on me, could that surgeon say, well, because of that particular lifestyle, I can't do that surgery on you? Is it a matter of that surgeon saying, I don't do these procedures for anybody,
Correct,
so that they can't cherry pick who they want to do and who they don't want to do?
That's absolutely right. You're hitting the nail on the head, and that's the important distinction. So, I know some surgeons who feel very, well, there's a whole bunch of things that you could get into, and you could say, well, these are examples of things you might want to opt out. But if a surgeon or a physician offers a procedure, they need to offer that to everyone. So you're not picking and choosing your patients based on their lifestyle choices, based on their ethnicity, based on their religion or their political views. You're basing it on whether or not you have opted in or out of that specific service. And that's a very important distinction.
Well, that ain't what the other side's saying. So I'm glad you're on to clarify that and bring some truth to the matter. So, all right, Dr. Bledsoe, thank you just for calling in today and lending your ideas and clarification to the bill. And we look forward to seeing you in the halls at the Capitol. So, all right.
Well, thanks very much for having me on.
All right. Thank you for calling in. All right. Now back to Representative Smith. And I'm sorry, Dr. Bledsoe just kind of called in and he squeezed in a call real quick. So I've got Representative Brandt Smith, who is the representative carrying Senate Bill 289 on the House side. And I've got Stephanie Nichols, who is the Arkansas Chief Legal Counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom on the line. Thank you all for being on the Kim Hammer Show today. And Stephanie, do we have you now?
You do much better. I can hear you now. Thank you.
All right, good deal. All right, so let me ask you, as the Chief Legal Counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom here in Arkansas, what is driving the need for this legislation? You kind of heard Dr. Bledsoe's comments, but the question is, why this bill? Why now?
The time is right for this bill because, honestly, it used to be that people could submit conscience claims under the Trump administration, and the federal HHS government might pursue your conscience claim. It was never efficient, and it never allowed you to file your own cause of action. But now we have a federal government that is hostile to conscience claims. So even the amount that people relied on the federal government before to protect their conscience claims, now we have President Biden saying that he wants to revoke the federal HHS conscience rule. And we know this administration is going to be funding procedures that have not been funded in the past, which will increase the pressure on medical practitioners to provide more objectionable services. These include things like abortion and abortifacient drugs.
Okay. And let me ask you, Representative Smith, what is different about this bill from the previous bills that you have run, or is it identical to the previous bills that you've run?
Well, thank you, Kim, for having me, and Stephanie, it's always good to be with you. And but I think the primary difference with this bill is there have been some amendments made to change some of the language that might not have been very clear in the past. I think we've done a much better job putting this bill together, and I'm really proud of the fact that the name has even been changed to an act to be entitled Medical Ethics or Med X, whatever you said earlier, the Med Act title. I think it just provides clarity. And Dr. Bledsoe is correct. There have been so many misinterpretations, and even you mentioned the opposition being so conniving in some ways to put things into the bill or to confuse the language, but it's really very plain if people would take the time to read it. And I think one of the issues that we had last time was with some language about reasonable accommodation. If someone wanted to, as a nurse or a surgical tech, if they had a conscience issue with a specific procedure, with reasonable accommodation, they could step back. A substitute could step in for them, and then they could step back into their role. But this language in this bill is much more clear, and I appreciate that fact.
Okay. So let me tell you, not everybody that talks about this bill is in opposition to this bill. Obviously there's a majority of the Senate that was in favor of this bill, but there's some people that have asked some legitimate questions that I think deserve, some legitimate answers. So Stephanie, I'm going to read to you a question that was asked of me, and I want you to respond to it as it relates to the bill. And here's what I was asked. It says, then can you please explain to those of us who follow our ethical standards to not capitalize discriminate, what it is exactly that our legislators have decided for us? Because the last time I read the ANA Code of Ethics, I'm pretty sure it doesn't include anything that you all find ethical or moral for a nurse. In fact, it contradicts the standards we have lived by for all my 37 years of professional nursing practice. Can you explain that to me, please?
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused by that question. Are they are they suggesting some potential conflict with the bill, or could you read that one more time for me? I'm sorry.
Sure, and then I'm going to give you my interpretation what the question they're
Okay.
asking. It says, then can you please explain to those of us who follow our ethical standards to not discriminate what it is exactly that our legislators have decided for us? Because the last time I read the ANA Code of Ethics, I'm pretty sure it doesn't include anything that you all find ethical or moral for a nurse. In fact, it contradicts the standards we have lived by for all of my 37 years of professional nurse practice. Can you explain that to me? So I think the interpretation to the question I would have is that they are already living by the Code of Ethics of the ANA. What is it that we as a legislature are trying to do by passing this law that's not already in law? And why would we pass this if they've already got coverage now?
Because they do not have the coverage that they probably think that they have. Right now, without this law, doctors and nurses can be sued for not providing objectionable procedures. And one big thing I want to point out, some people say that we already have conscience protection in Arkansas for abortion. We do in name only. In actuality, it has no civil cause of action attached to it. So if a nurse loses her job because she does not want to participate in abortion procedure or other objectionable procedure, right now she has no legal recourse. And I have talked to medical professionals who have been forced into those situations. And we do need to guard against that as a state. Absolutely, we preserve non-discrimination in medicine, but we also need to provide liability protection for doctors and nurses who, in this contentious and hostile culture we're living in right now, can find themselves hauled into court as a test case. We need to provide and restore peace and security for doctors and nurses and know that regardless of what their religious beliefs or their moral beliefs or ethical beliefs are, we need to make sure that they have a place in medicine and that they feel secure. This is America, and I do believe in true diversity. I believe there is room for us all. So we need to make sure that people of faith do not get pushed out of the medical field.
Well, and it doesn't just have to be, and I think that's part of the perception is this is the saved versus the lost, the Christian versus the non-Christian. That's not necessarily the basis for why this is being done, because you can be a person who maybe doesn't have a personal relationship with Christ as your Savior and have a moral or philosophical difference with a medical provider that is superior to you, that is going to ask you to do something that may go against your philosophical or moral standards. Is that an accurate statement?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely not applicable just to Christians. In fact, there was one medical student who was Hindu and was involved in an abortion and was devastated to be involved in it in that way. And, you know, it's definitely broader than that. And it extends also to those who have no particular faith, but just have philosophical ethics. We need to make sure that they are protected as well. And I've reviewed the bill, and it does a good job of being non-discriminatory, equal. And one important point I want to make is Illinois has had a very similar law since 1977. Mississippi has had a very similar law since 2004. And in all those years that these laws have been in existence, there have been absolutely no lawsuits by any potential patients or patients saying they were not able to access services. That speaks the truth of what this law is really about.
Well, and I want to go ahead, Brandt.
I heard you on the Senate floor last week make this statement, and I think it's applicable here. If you don't have a remedy, you can't defend yourself. And this bill provides a remedy for all people, all medical practitioners.
Well, and
that's right, because who do we not want to be protected? Who doesn't deserve to have their constitutional rights respected?
Well, if I'm on the other side of this argument, I don't want you to have that protection, because then I can force you to do what I want to do through civil remedy by taking you into court and suing you and sue you. Am I right or wrong in that?
You're right. And that lawsuit can drag on for years and consume a good part of your time and energy. And that's not what we want our medical professionals involved in. They are the heroes of the pandemic. And we need to provide a proper level of respect and protection for them so that they can do their jobs. Medical professionals, doctors and nurses, they want to heal. They want to gladly serve everyone. So we need to keep the focus on what this bill actually does, which is allows doctors and nurses to keep serving everyone, but respects their conscience in the process.
So let me ask you, on this bill, if this bill was in law before the pandemic hit and somebody presented to the hospital, would there be grounds for someone in the medical field to not offer treatment to somebody that presented because they had COVID?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. And Representative Smith, you cited a quote that I gave on the floor the other day, and that is part of what this bill is all about. It's if you don't have a remedy, you don't have an ability to defend yourself. And what we're trying to do is put into place a law that those that have conscientious objection, and as Dr. Bledsoe said a while ago, if you're practicing surgery, doing gallbladder surgery, you can't do gallbladder surgeries for everybody else but this one population. That once you hang your shingle out there and you say, I'm a surgeon that does gallbladder surgeries, I'm a surgeon that does heart surgeries, I'm a surgeon or a nurse that works in this field, you cannot hide behind this law in order to selectively pick and choose which class of people you want to do that service for. Stephanie, you're the attorney, is that right?
Yes, you must continue to serve all people. And that is what I personally support, and I know both of you as legislators support, because we do believe in health care for all people. But we also believe medical professionals need to have their rights respected in the process. Okay,
tell you what, I got to take a break here. I'm getting that look from John on the other side of the glass. So I got to take a break. We're going to come back and spend about 5, maybe 10 minutes. I've got Dr. Childers, who's with the Unemployment Division, on the line. We're going to talk about the unemployment status, and with the weather coming up here in a little bit, what if you have to go to the unemployment office and it's going to be 30 degrees or less? How are we going to handle that, and what are we going to do, and what should you expect? So we've got a lot to finish up on the Kim Hammer Show here today. A quick shout out, Kerry Murphy, North Little Rock Gun Show is at the Windsong Event Center, 7318 Windsong. That's right there in the curve of I-40 and I-430. Sits right down there. You can't miss it. That's today till 5, tomorrow from 9 to 4. And then the Wood Grill in Benton is open back up after a long time of being shut down because of COVID, but they are back it up in business. They are open from 10:45 to 8:30. Thursday through Sunday. So now you got your lunch plans figured out for tomorrow, or supper plans tonight. What a great place to take your wife for Valentine's Day. Hint, hint. And that's there right off Military there in Benton. We'll be back to the Kim Hammer Show right after this break.
Have you ever gone to the doctor and received a check from the insurance company? Pat Davis, yourhealthplanman.com, says his clients do. One of the things he hears more than anything else is it just sounds too good to be true. Let's make it really easy to understand and why it's not. When you go to the hospital and have a steroid injection, it costs the hospital 75 cents, and they bill your insurance company $360. When you go to the urgent care, they bill you $240. For that visit, with most insurance, you have up to a $100 copay or worse. Everything goes toward your deductible. In other words, it's all out of your pocket. So why does one company charge you a copay or deductible and another gives you a check for $100 to $500? Because with yourhealthplanman.com, they kick the middlemen out. Would you rather have more money go to the insurance company or in your pocket? Go to yourhealthplanman.com and see how we can do the same for you. Call or text 501-605-6935. That's yourhealthplanman.com.
Your business is ready for a reboot, a recharge. The way our companies operate has changed. Adapting to the changes hasn't been easy, but never more important to succeed. Many of the digital resources available have helped overcome obstacles your business is facing. But are you using the full potential of every one of them? That's where Salem Surround can help. Your business needs to use digital tools more than ever to stay in touch with customers, making buying decisions right now and for the future. Will they consider or even know about you? The marketing team at Salem Surround gives you the tools needed to stand out and be visible to current and potential customers online right now looking for what you do. We'll design a plan that targets and surrounds customers with proven marketing strategies. Contact Salem Surround for a free evaluation of your marketing plan and see how we can help place your advertising message in front of today's consumers. Learn more at surroundlittlerock.com. surroundlittlerock.com. Connecting you with new customers.
Imagine doing one thing that gives you an entirely different perspective about your place in the world. Think it would be worth it? Hi, it's Mike Gallagher, hoping you can join me for a 10-day Stand with Israel tour through the land of Israel, October 2021. Join us. Get firsthand insight into Israel's fascinating past and promising future. We'll learn about the geopolitical, economic, and spiritual dynamics of one of the most fascinating countries on earth. But you'll share experiences that'll change how you read Scripture, walk the ancient temple steps, touch the Western Wall, sail on the Sea of Galilee, pray on the Mount of Beatitudes. The list goes on and on. Return home inspired, renewed, and empowered. Now listen, if you've ever dreamed of seeing Israel, this is your chance. Join me October 2021, and right now register worry-free. Peace of mind, guaranteed refunds up to May 8th if for any reason you want to cancel. So to come along, call 855-565-5519, 855-565-5519, or go to standwithisraeltour.com, standwithisraeltour.com.
101.1 FM, The Answer.
Kim Hammer Show. Again, want to remind you, Kerry Murphy has a gun show going on over in North Little Rock there at Windsong Event Center. And then also the Wood Grill in Benton is open back up. If you're coming from Little Rock, go down to the Highway 5 overpass, loop over, come up by Walmart, you'll come by Colton's, and then you'll come by IHOP, and there's a little road that goes up to the top of the hill. In fact, you can see it sitting up there like a light shining out on the city. There in Benton, the Wood Grill in Benton, or if you're off Military, you can just come in there behind Burger King. If you live down that area, you know exactly where the Wood Grill is, so I encourage you to go by and support these guys. They've been shut down for a long time because of COVID, and I understood they had a great turnout Thursday when they opened up and yesterday, and so it's a great place to eat at affordable prices. All right. So let me go back and ask y'all. There were a couple questions that were raised respectfully, which I appreciate that, by some of the fellow senators that had a little bit of concern about this bill. And one is, is this just a backdoor way for people to discriminate against people of race or religion? And is this providing some protection for them to be able to do that?
Absolutely not. It is very important to realize that that is already prohibited under federal law. And this bill, I want to encourage your listeners to read the actual bill. Don't read headlines about it, but read the actual bill and think through it yourself. You can see if they pull up the bill, Arkansas Senate Bill 289, make sure it's the 2021 version. And if you go to page 5, you can look at lines 19 and 20, and it says very clearly, has the right not to participate in a health care service that violates his, her, or its conscience. It is targeted to the service. You must continue to serve all people.
Okay, and then I've got an employee who's in the medical field working in my clinic, and all of a sudden they walk in one morning and say, you know what, conscientious objection, philosophical difference, religious difference, I'm not going to do that anymore in the clinic. How do you handle that one?
Okay, thankfully there is great case law interpreting conscience, and there's a great case out of Illinois that says conscience must be interpreted reasonably, and the legislature would never intend for conscience to allow somebody to get out of their job or to shut a clinic down when that's one of their primary services. So we have good case law on the books that says conscience must be interpreted reasonably.
All right. I want to read you a statement. Tell me if it's accurate or not. The Arkansas Senate on Wednesday approved a measure allowing medical providers to refuse to treat someone because of their religious or moral beliefs, a move critics say will allow them to turn away the LGBTQ patients away. True, false, or what's a legal perspective of how the bill is written that addresses that comment?
Well, it's absolutely false. Representative Smith, were you trying to speak up? I don't want to.
I think I heard him loud and clear. Go ahead, Brandt.
Well, I read that same article, and when I first read it, it rubbed me the wrong way, because there has been nothing said in the Senate Public Health Committee regarding that issue. Mentioned on the Senate floor. I'm going to be mentioning that Public Health House Committee, or from the House floor when I present this bill. I just think there are people that just enjoy stirring up problems that really don't exist, and this is one of those moments.
All right, but let me ask you. I may not have said anything about it on the Senate floor. I may not have said anything in Senate Public Health. You may not say anything when it. Where in the bill does it not? Where in the bill address that issue so that we know that that is not what the bill is designed to allow?
You go to page 5, look at lines 19 and 20, and your listeners can see that the bill is focused on healthcare services that violate a practitioner's conscience. You cannot refuse to serve someone based on how they identify. And honestly, none of us on this call would support a bill that was not about equal and fair health care for all.
Well, there you go, letting the facts get in the way. Dadgummit, quit it. I also have a letter from the American Academy of Medical Ethics supporting the bill. Are you familiar that letter is floating around out there?
I have not seen the letter, but I'm very familiar with that group, and they do great work.
So who are they that they would take a position in support of this bill? Because, I mean, just the title alone, you know, it could, although I'm looking at the list of who all's on it, and they're all PhDs and, you know, they're educated folks. Who are these folks that their weight matters?
They are high-level medical professionals in each state that they meet together and are devoted to advancing medical ethics.
Did I lose you?
I'm not sure if you could hear that clearly, but I said that they were high-level people at each state who are top of their field and devoted to advancing medical ethics.
Okay. I got one last thing because I think we're losing our signal here, but let's see if we can get this one squeezed in. What about insurance companies and payers? The bill specifically, or it's referenced in that. So what about payers, and can they deny coverage to individuals, or how's that going to play out if this law gets through?
Okay, that is a great question. I'm glad that you raised that. The payer provision, honestly, secular, non-religious insurance companies, they don't have conscience objections because they don't have things in their governing documents that are like religious, moral, or ethical beliefs that they can point to. So secular insurance companies are not going to be able to deny payments under this bill. The payer provision is to protect in situations like the Little Sisters of the Poor case, where a group of Catholic nuns who provided health care for the elderly poor, they were actually sued because they did not believe in providing contraceptives. And it is really important to note that none of their employees complained. They were actually sued by the state. So we want to provide protection against that type of situation in Arkansas. And that's one of the reasons I support the bill.
The Supreme Court of the United States ruled in their favor regarding their objections to conscience.
That's right. That's right. Another important part of the bill is it does have protections for consumers. If a healthcare payer does choose not to cover certain procedures for reasons of conscience, it has to be a conscience reason. You have to articulate your conscientious objection. Those are going to be, posted for people to see before they select that insurance plan. So consumers are protected. There is full disclosure. And when I vetted the bill, I appreciated the inclusion of that provision for consumers.
So is it a fair statement to say that this bill has been drafted taking a look at Supreme Court cases that have already been levied in other states and designed around satisfying what was determined by those Supreme Court cases?
When I reviewed the bill, I found it very comparable to Mississippi and Illinois' long-standing bill, and that is how I could say that it would be interpreted reasonably, and that there would not be unintended consequences. We have 2 states to look at, and there's a long history.
Very good. All right, I've got to get to Dr. Childers because she is kind enough to give up some of her Saturday, and we want to talk about unemployment issues here in the state. This is the Kim Hammer Show, and you've been listening to Representative Brandt Smith, who's going to be carrying SB 289 on the House end, and you've been listening also to Stephanie Nichols, who is the Arkansas Legal Counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom. And I appreciate y'all very much being on the Kim Hammer Show regarding this bill. And we've put out some facts, and hopefully people will share this interview so that people can hear what the truth of the matter is instead of believing one-line quotes that get a headline but don't necessarily reflect what it really all is about. So, all right, thanks for being on the Kim Hammer Show. I'll let y'all go. And now we've got Dr. Childers, and we are going to talk about the unemployment issue in the state of Arkansas and just get some updates on some things. This is Dr. Charisse Childers. She is the director of the Arkansas Division of Workforce Services. And Dr. Childers, thank you for taking a little time out on Saturday to be on the Kim Hammer Show.
Hi, Senator Hammer. Thank you for the opportunity to just provide some information to your listeners so that they will be more informed. I appreciate you having me on today.
All right. And we work well together, and I know you're doing everything you can. Just tell us, first of all, if you will, give us the landscape of the unemployment picture in Arkansas as far as how many are, how many unemployment claims do we have out there, and just kind of give us the overall picture of where we are.
Okay, and thank you for asking about that, because I think that's important to put all of this into perspective. I mean, our offices and around the state and our central office, along with a lot of help from other agencies, are working to get the benefits out as quickly as possible under conditions that we've not been in ever. So just to put this into perspective, I'll start on the 1099s that went out. In 2019, we sent out about 43,000 1099s to individuals showing that they had income from unemployment benefits that totaled about $100 million. Just this month, we sent out 1099s for the 2020 year, and we sent out 281,840 1099s. Again, previously, last year in 2019, it was 43,000. In addition, we sent out $2.6 billion in benefits in 2020, 2.632, as opposed to about $100 million the year before. So just giving you those numbers, I think, puts it all in perspective as to what we're dealing with and the number of those that are receiving unemployment benefits in the state. Currently, fortunately, we're looking at smaller numbers. We're looking at, from a high of 62,000 claims in 2020. Now we're at this past week at 3,438. Those are new claims. And then for our pandemic unemployment assistance, which is the new program that was put into place by the CARES Act and now has been extended, but with new verification and documentation requirements under the Continued Assistance Act that went into place week ending January the 2nd. We're looking currently at a high of about 15,771 claims, and now we're looking at week ending 2/6 of 1,708 claims. I know that's a lot. Those are a lot of numbers, but it just helps to understand the perspective of the volume. And so we are working hard to get the PUA system back working again. We've had some problems with the service that we use to verify regular unemployment benefits. And so that service we've been utilizing for a very, very, very long time, even before the pandemic. but we started getting calls and emails from people that were having issues with their PUA verification and also their account and their claims. So we looked into the issue. We started working on it immediately, and we hope to have that resolved this weekend. While that impacts a small number of people, we know that all the benefits that we can get out the door and as fast as we can get them out the door to people is the most important thing. And we realize that those individuals are dependent upon these benefits. So with the Continued Assistance Act, currently it will run through the week ending March 13th of 2021. So under regular unemployment, the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, that was extended through March 13th, as well as the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance for those that are self-employed or independent contractors, et cetera. But like I mentioned, there are additional ID verification and documentation requirements that were put into place by Congress under the Continued Assistance Act, and then, of course, required by us in the guidance that we received from the United States Department of Labor the first week and second week of January, that we incorporated into our systems. So that is why we're seeing, as you mentioned earlier, an increase in the number of calls, an increase in the number of those going to the local office, and I'll be glad to talk about that and what individuals should do and what they should expect as we're working through specifically the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program and the issues that they're experiencing currently with their account.
Let me ask you about a couple specific things, because these are the calls I get. The long wait time when people call in and listening to music, and then the call's getting dropped and they have to call back, and they're calling like 43 times trying to get through. What is the issue there, and what are we doing to try to resolve that, and what is attributing to that problem?
We have a call center that works and adjusts their schedule or their number of people, agents answering the phone. Obviously, there's a limited number of people, and we're all seeing that as we're trying to hire individuals just within the Division of Workforce Services and state government. So there's a limited number of people that are available that have the knowledge to answer the questions and also send those calls to our local offices if an expert is required, someone that has more experience. So prior to the ID verification requirement that had to be in place in our system and implemented by February 6th, our average wait time was anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes. Now we are aware that individuals are experiencing a longer wait time, and in some cases also going to their local office and not being able to see anyone after being in the line for hours, as we're hearing. So that's something that we're working on. We're putting in place more people on the call center. So we encourage you just to not hang up, for one, unless it does hang up on you because of the wait time. But you are in a queue, so we encourage you to stay and to listen carefully to the options to make sure that you are selecting the correct option so that you are going to the right call center and also to answer your questions specifically for the issues that you're experiencing. As far as going to the local office, those that are currently going to the local office that are on pandemic unemployment assistance should only be going there if they are there to present their ID. So letters went out asking them to go to their local office. Several delays occurred in those, including the service that we use in delivering those letters or preparing those letters to send out, and the delivery of those letters. So if you received a letter and your date has expired, the amount of time that you were allowed to show your ID, please continue to call either the call center if needed to to update any information or to show your ID because you did not get the You Identified link in your email. So go to the local office. I do realize that the lines are long, but a lot of those that are in line are for PUA questions, and the local offices are not able to answer those except to accept IDs. So we are going in Little Rock and in Jacksonville. We are going, and we'll put out information on social media. We are going to set up separate lines for those individuals that are just needing to show their ID for the pandemic unemployment assistance. And hopefully that will relieve some of the the pressure on the local offices for regular unemployment claims, and then also allow these individuals to get through a lot faster. We did that once back in the summer, and of course it was hot, and we had fans going. Now it's going to be cold next week, and so we want everyone to know that if you are eligible for benefits and you are just trying to show your ID and get your ID verified because you did not get the link, we are, going to offer additional lines for those in the Central Arkansas area, Little Rock and Jacksonville, and we'll announce that on social media when that is ready to go. And then we're also going to send out new links to those that said that they never received the link. What we're finding is that individuals are either have changed their email address, so they're not getting the ID verification. So if you changed your email address since you signed up on Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, you will need to call the 844 number so that they can change it for you, and we have a correct email. In addition, you need to look in your spam and your junk folder to make sure that you see it there. And it is coming from an arkansas.gov address. So you should recognize it. Beware of any fraudulent emails or text messages, because we don't send text messages, but beware of any fraud emails, and look in your junk and your spam folder to see if you see an email from us that we will be sending out to those that did not get the link on the first round for some reason.
Okay, I've only got about 2 minutes. Do you know that 844 number off the top of your head by any chance?
Yes, sir. It is, and I want to make sure I'm looking at the right number. Just 1 second. 844-908-2178. Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 844-908-2178.
And they're to call that number if what now?
Call that number if they have questions about their Pandemic Unemployment Assistance account. And then also if they think that their email address in their current PUA account is incorrect.
Okay. I've got about a minute and a half. Next week it's going to be like 27 degrees, 8 inches of snow. Office is going to be open, closed, or is this a wait and see just what happens? And where can they go to know?
If the governor closes all state offices, then our offices around the state, our local offices, will be closed. If, as in the case last week, the governor calls everyone to work, and we have a late opening, then the offices will open at the time that the governor requires us to open. And some opened at 8 a.m. last week because they didn't have, or this past week, because they didn't have the weather that we had in certain parts of the state.
Okay.
So if your county, city, and state offices are closed, most likely our offices will be closed. If they're open, we will do everything we can to make those offices open for individuals around the state.
All right. That's Dr. Childers, and I appreciate you being on, giving us an update. Director of Arkansas Division of Workforce Services. You've been listening to The Kim Hammer Show. You can go up to my website, www.thekimhammershow.com. Be kept up to date. Remember the Kerry Murphy North Little Rock Gun Show at the Windsong Event Center, and then also Wood Grill in Benton. Great place to go for Valentine's Day and just enjoy a good meal. Appreciate you listening to The Kim Hammer Show. Be safe next week during the weather.
101.1 FM. The Answer. KDXE FM. Kamak Village, Little Rock. A Salem Media Group station. 101.1 FM. The Answer.